I'll learn you up. Yes, sir.
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 392. My name is Brando. Coming up a little bit later on for Appetite for Discovery, we meet a couple guys from a Bee Gees metal cover band. They're pretty big here, not just here in New York City where they're from, but all over the world. Tragedy. They're going to be touring with Steel Panther this summer, and Disco, the main man, the front man, he was also in a Guns N' Roses cover band. So, of course, we will talk about that as well. That is coming up. But first, Phil Campbell of Motorhead. And before I even get to that, I'm going to leave in my mistake, because I don't know if it's my mistake. So I was told, and I announced, if you follow, again, the conversation, I always say this, conversation continues in between the broadcast and social media. I announced Mickey D, the drummer of Motorhead, and that's because that's what the email said. That was what was confirmed. I answered the phone, and I should say I called, and it was Phil Campbell. So immediately I'm like, does this guy think I'm an idiot? No, that didn't happen. But I also want to acknowledge what was supposed to be 20 minutes ended up only being 10, because I had to call this time. It's not going to be on Zoom like it will be with Tragedy coming up. But I had to dial out of the country to the UK, and I apparently haven't done that in a long time that I forgot how to do it. I know there's a country code, but I didn't realize until after the fact, because I was scrambling for nearly half the time trying to dial through, and I ended up just holding my cell phone up to the microphone. So I apologize if the audio isn't up to our usual standards, but got to make do with what we do. But I realized after the fact, or I learned, or relearned, I should say, that there's an exit code. There's an exit code, then there's an area code, a country code, an area code. Ah, man, the fact that I got Phil Campbell on for 10 minutes, I think, is a miracle. So what was supposed to be 20 with Mickey D is 10 with Phil Campbell. But it was awesome. So without further ado, here's Phil Campbell of Motorhead.
Hello, Brandon.
Hey, Mickey, how are you?
This is Phil.
Oh, Phil? Who am I speaking with? Who am I speaking with today? Mickey D or Phil Campbell?
Phil Campbell.
Oh, I did not know that. They told me I was speaking with Mickey today, but I'm excited to talk to you as well.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Well, I'm obviously really excited to kind of relive the last Motorhead album, Bad Magic with Seriously Bad Magic, and the two kind of, I don't know if you want to call them new songs because you worked on them. So what are your thoughts on kind of reliving this album and with the two new songs and new video for Bullet in Your Brain?
Well, we had a great time doing the album. It turned out, unfortunately, it was the last album. We had a great time. I mean, writing it. We wrote the songs in the studio, so we were able to record all the ideas we had straight away. Which was a first for us. We'd always previously we just been in a rehearsal situation and wrote songs. But we had a great time doing it, and then we looked back and we found a few bits and pieces. Just Bullet in My Brain. I even forgot entirely about that song that we'd written there. And then we found another version of Till the End with them Greedy Bastards lyrics, which are amazing. The lyrics, and I felt that especially now with what's going on, that the lyrics really, cut deep.
Yeah.
With what many people's opinions of what's going on, especially over here in the UK and that. And then we thought, why not? We put Heroes on, and then the live Japanese one, in Fuji, the Fuji Festival. That was fantastic as well. And, and whack it out there again. And, of course, the deluxe ones, you get a Ouija board and stuff. For those who want to live a bit dangerously. And a big, long interview with Lem. So, yeah, it's good. And I thought it was one of our best albums at the time when it came out anyway. So we're putting it out again. And hopefully it'll create some interest with some new fans as well, maybe interested in it. So we're really happy with it, and it was a great album.
It is. Motorhead lives on. I love it. And yeah, Heroes, the David Bowie cover. If I can ask, though, what is it for like you personally to relive this, especially with the footage? Does it put you back in the studio with Lemmy? Is it cathartic, or do you kind of does it put a smile on your face to kind of almost be with Lemmy again? How do you look at it, reliving some of this stuff?
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both sometimes. It's, especially when you can see Lem smiling and joking on any footage, really, that's always nice. Like, and other times, you get a different feeling. Like, it makes you sad and stuff. It's great to have it out there. And we were like kind of a unique brotherhood together, especially the three of us with so many years playing together. And I can cope with seeing it all again. Because there's a lot of stuff that we were together all the time. There's stuff that I wouldn't even forgotten about, or footage I wouldn't have seen before. Like, so it's all good in the end, I guess. And it's good for the fans to see what it was like as well, as much as they can see of what it was like in Motorhead. I mean, nobody will ever know what it was like in Motorhead unless you were actually in Motorhead. But you can get kind of close-ish, I guess, by what we put out for people and whatever.
I agree. Watching the video, it was really cool to see you all in studio together, either laughing or taking things seriously and laying down the tracks. It was very special to see. Do you have, because, and forgive me, I know we don't have a lot of time. This is because listeners are excited to hear, they love Motorhead, my listeners. So this is from Jeremy. Do you have a funny story of Lemmy during this recording session, or perhaps like the funniest story of Lemmy that when you think about him, it just makes you laugh?
I think one day he walked in and I had Adam Jones from Tool. He was playing a guitar solo on one of the tracks, so a bit of fun. The Tool were mixing in the other studio at NRG. So Lem came in, he could hear some guitar, and he came in and he saw it wasn't me there. He saw it was Adam playing, and his eyebrow just looked at me, and his eyebrow raised up like a kind of Roger Moore thing, like that. He said, "What's going on here?" So he knows Adam anyway. He likes Adam. He liked Adam. But he was just a bit confused, I think, at that time.
That's funny. I also want to ask, because the name of the podcast is Appetite for Distortion, Guns N' Roses themed, and I know you guys are good buddies with Slash. You played Coachella together a few years ago, so I was hoping perhaps you could talk about your friendship with Slash, what he meant to Motorhead, and obviously him and Lemmy were close friends, and perhaps any other GNR connections that you might have.
Yeah, well, for a while I lived with Matt Sorum anyway in Hollywood. I lived with Matt for a while, and Matt drummed with us when Mickey went to do went to the jungle, one of them jungle reality programs. Right. So Matt kindly did. He came out and played for 2 weeks with us in North America. So that was great. But I think the first time we met Slash, and I think Slash and a couple of the guys came to they came to our studio when we were recording Orgasmatron in London. I think that was the very first time
Okay.
we met the guys, and we've been bumping into them ever since, you know, and Slash has played with us on stage maybe on a dozen occasions. Jeff's toured with us with Loaded. I played with Slash's band, you know, on stage, and me and the Bastard Sons, we toured with Slash and everything. So there's a lot of connections there, you know, mutual respect, you know. They are an amazing band, Guns N' Roses, you know. They're one of the best, unique.
Was it cool? Was it cool for you to play with Matt Sorum? Because I believe Lemmy told Matt that Dave Grohl was not available. That's why they got Matt Sorum, and Matt he didn't realize how tough Mickey's parts were. So, what did you think of playing with Matt Sorum for a couple weeks? Was it fun?
Oh, he was great. He was great. We had one rehearsal at the 9:30 Club the day before. We were going to play the 9:30 Club. It's in Baltimore, right? I think somewhere over there.
Okay.
And yeah, we just had 4 or 5 hours rehearsal, like, and Matt just nailed it. He nailed it so well. He loved it. He loved that 2 weeks out with us.
Very cool.
But unfortunately, yeah, the Canadian we had the Canadian gig. He wasn't sure if he would get arrested, Matt, if we went to Canada, but he was willing to give it a go. But I think his manager advised him not to, just in case. So we had our drum tech, Francis Ruiz, who's playing. Who's Francis? He's playing with a Blackstone Cherry now.
Okay.
Band. Yeah. So Francis played with us one show. Then when we came back into North America, Matt picked up the stool again, like. But it was great fun.
Right on. And I know we got to go in a minute, and apologies for not dialing the UK correctly, but I'm glad I got you, Phil. I just want to say, Bullet in Your Brain, the video, and your guitar work, the song is as good as anything you've done. It's just an incredible song. The fact that this has been... We haven't heard it until now, but I'm glad that we finally get to kind of relive this moment with you, Mickey, and Lemmy. So just thanks for keeping Motorhead's name alive.
Thanks. Yeah, we intend to. You know, we were quite a unique band. We had a hell of a ride, and anything that we can find, you know, which people would rock out to, we're going to give it to them. You know.
Well, I'm definitely, because my wife and I are due in April, and I'm going to get him a Motorhead onesie. So I'm letting you know that. Well, thank you so much, Phil. I hope we get to do this again.
Okay, yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So that was fun. Hopefully next time we can get Phil on for longer, or perhaps interview Mickey D like it was initially scheduled. But all things considered, that was a fun interview. And now we move towards the second part of the episode. We have a segment called Appetite for Discovery, where we talk about music and bands that perhaps you may not know here on this GNR-centric podcast. So we'll be speaking with Mo Royce and Disco Mountain Man of the Bee Gees metal cover band, Tragedy. And I'll just apologize in advance for, I will probably mess up and say my cat's name, GB, by accident. But anyway, Appetite for Discovery on Appetite for Distortion.
Rather than just throwing a bunch of songs together that we think are fun, we're going over it, you know, with a fine-tooth comb and just working on everything to try it. That's the goal. Very appetite.
For Discovery. And now it is time for Appetite for Discovery, where in this Appetite for Distortion world, a band that maybe you don't know, but you should. And here, living in New York, and you know what? Shame on me. Well, I know if you're looking at this on Zoom, I want to make sure that Cornmo, we know, goes by Disco Mountain Man. That's the lead singer of Tragedy. And then we got Mo Rice, right? I'm getting it right this time? Or kind of like Rolls Royce. Mo Royce. I'm going to
More Rolls Royce.
I mean, I'll
More
get that.
Rolls Royce than Rolls Royce.
Mo Roy. Okay, there you go. Mo Royce, singer and guitarist from Tragedy. And if you're not familiar, they are a oh, this is something else I will apologize for if I screwed this up. I have a cat named GB. You guys are a Bee Gees metal cover band. So if I screw up the letters, it's because I'm thinking of my cat. So, Bee Gees, all metal and obviously a lot of disco and different kinds of music, but cover band out of New York City. And I've heard about you guys for so many years. Shame on me for still, it's going to change after this interview, not having seen you, but you guys have made a name for yourself in New York City. So before we go anywhere else, welcome Disco and Mo Royce. Welcome to the Appetite for Distortion show.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
Where you guys located? Disco looks like he's in a library, and Mo, you look like you're in the, an evil church.
This is my living room.
I like it.
This
So,
is the middle room of my long apartment.
of your long apartment.
This is the middle of my railroad apartment.
Right on. Well, it is really cool to have you guys on because I know he won't listen to this, but my friend Sean years ago, I remember him telling me about this band Tragedy. I need to check them out. But with my job in radio, I'm always working nights, so it's hard to kind of always go out at night. But this interview opportunity came up, and I'm like, you know what? If I can't see them yet, I got to speak to them and know more about how they got into this world of cover songs and going viral, covering Grease and the new album that's coming out. That's all dedicated to some of the greatest female vocalists of all time. So, did you two start the band? Who started Tragedy? How did we get here?
Well, I started it with a guy who's no longer in the band, but with Barry Glib. But then Disco Mountain Man was on the first album he sang Shadow Dancing. And then joined the band full time. I think it was by the third album, right? Death to False Disco Metal.
Yes.
Yeah, so started it, and it really started as just we thought, and everybody thought, was just a really stupid, ill-advised joke. But then we started working on the music and started playing some shows, and we found it very inspiring. Like the creative juices just got flowing, and then audiences really dug what we were doing too.
It is really fun and it's clever, and that's why you guys are going to be out on tour this year with Steel Panther, kind of like another. What do you prefer? Like, is it a parody band? Because you guys are obviously really talented, real musicians, but you're covering, there's a shtick to it. What do you like to be kind of coined as?
I don't think of us as parody necessarily. That we're comedy. It's comical.
Mm-hmm.
But then sometimes it's not comical at all. I don't know. It's just a very showy, glammy kind of eye-popping, ear-busting kind of show.
And Mo, I guess, how did you get into it? Because obviously you're talented, you're a musician, but what made, was that always kind of the vision to do a comedy band, or were you writing your own music? Like, how did this kind of develop? Like, I'm going to do, because you mentioned it's kind of a joke at the beginning, and it's not now because it's very successful. But when did you realize, like, you know what, this GB's metal band, or BG, I did it.
There you go.
I did it. This Bee Gees cover band, this metal band is just like it's connecting with people. Something's coming from this.
Yeah, so I was always I never played in a cover band or tribute band or anything before this. I just always wrote my own music and everything. But was also kind of doing like a very glammy kind of show. This, like initially we just thought it would be funny and maybe, kind of stupid fun for a couple shows, right? But then, yeah, it kind of took over.
Were you
And Disco Mountain Man too he's got amazing original music and still does it, thankfully, because it's fantastic.
Well, thank you.
okay? Well, you're definitely going to need to talk about that. And if you're watching this, because we're here heard on iHeartRadio and all the usual podcast platforms, but obviously you can watch this on YouTube. Mo, I don't know if you've ever gotten, at least with your current getup, you look like Rainn Wilson from The Rocker. You know, Dwight Schrute from The Office.
Sure.
At least from what I'm looking
I-
at least in that movie The Rocker. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody wants to be tragedy. Everybody's trying to look like us, sound like us, trying to do Bee Gees covers and stuff like that. But good luck. What can I say?
What about you, Disco? I mean, I'm a little jealous of your beard. I'm starting to get a little bit more gray to show that I'm more of a mountain man and not just a Queens man. But how did they find you? Is there disco in the mountains? So like, how did they how do they find you, and how did you connect with Mo?
Well, I knew Mo back when he was in Moi, and I was a part of a collective called the Good Bad Art Collective in Brooklyn, and we booked shows there. And so I saw Mo Royce in a band called Double Dong and Wild Licks that opened for David Cross at Irving Plaza. And me and my friends just said, we got to know this band. So I introduced myself to him, and then then we connected, and our bands played together, and we just became friends. And then then First Tragedy album, he asked me to sing the Andy Gibb song, Shadow Dancing. And that was my foot in the door with the Tragedy.
I mean, with the Bee Gees, they are such a legendary band with a legendary sound. Obviously, you're not singing exactly like them. You're doing your own metal way. But is there any sort of trepidation with that? Because you can't screw that up. I mean, it's you have to pay homage to the talent that they were, but also at the same time make it your own. Was there any sort of nerves going into it, or was it just this is just a fun gig and I'm not really thinking too much about singing? Singing the Gibbs, singing their part because they're voices of all time.
We really take it upon ourselves to reinvent everything. We try to stay true to the spirit of the original song and stuff like that. But we don't really try to imitate the Bee Gees singing necessarily. I mean, every once in a while we'll whip out some kind of thing. But our vision is to take all that disco and soft rock and turn it into hot molten metal.
What about some of your both of you, your influences growing up? Was it that the kind of the 80s hair metal era, or am I not thinking, am I pointing in the wrong direction? What was some of your influences?
Oh, go ahead.
So for me, really all over the place. I was exposed to Bee Gees and disco from my older sister's bedroom. She was a big Andy Gibb fan. But that's, real early on. And then when I got to be a teenager and I started playing guitar and had my own band, I was really into punk rock and hardcore and stuff like that. But then I was constantly rebelling against my own tastes and rebelling against what my friends were into and stuff like that. So like so many people who love music, you just start listening to everything and absorbing it all. So, while I was kind of in a punk rock music scene as a teenager, I was also taking in some hair metal and a lot of classic rock and stuff like that. And then one of my earliest passions was for music from the 50s. When I was 9 years old, I started collecting 45s that I get at garage sales and just got into everything like that. And it's kind of interesting to me that, like, the source music we do is really from the 70s and 80s.
Mhm.
And a lot of our audience wasn't born then. And people are curious about that. But the thing is that like people who love music, whether you're a musician or not, people get curious about all the music that came before. And so that's why this works and will work for eternity.
Mm. And that's why I love it, because I'm kind of on the because I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, but I gravitate a lot towards the 70s and 60s and 50s because of my parents, and they're the ones who got me into the Bee Gees. Even when it wasn't cool growing up, I still liked the Bee Gees. They were next to, you know, Guns N' Roses and Megadeth in my playlist. Got the Bee Gees and Boys to Men or whatever. I can bend the other way. What
Yeah.
about you, Disco? When did you realize you had the set of pipes that you have? Like, what your influences? Some of your early maybe favorite lead singers?
Oh, David Lee Roth for sure. I had a friend send me a cassette tape of the US Festival when I was in ninth grade, and it was one side was Van Halen's performance, the other side was the Scorpions. So I immediately took to Klaus Meine and David Lee Roth, and then I had a metal band in high school, and I was really that was about the time that David Lee Roth, after he left Van Halen, and I loved that first album that he did. And then I got into Freddie Mercury. He's probably like the pinnacle of frontmen. And I loved Vince Neil. I I uh I yeah, his voice is like the quintessential hair metal voice for me.
Mm.
Mm.
Lee Roth is like different, totally separate from everything. He's a brilliant singer. And Freddie Mercury's same. Just he's totally different. And I love Paul Stanley's voice. And yeah, uh yeah, I sort of cull from those greats into my singing. And I and I'm into some like classical singers as well, like Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau and uh uh Peter Thiel. Not Peter Thiel, that's the wrong guy. I can't remember his last name. Anyway, Herman Pry. I like, yeah, tenors.
Right
And
on,
yeah,
right
but yeah,
on.
Van Halen and Queen, probably the best bands that I love. And I love Axl Rose's voice as well.
And we're gonna get into, because you were in a Guns N' Roses cover band at one point. Of course, that's the 6 degrees of GNR Bacon, as I like to call it on this podcast. Before I lose it, Mo, because I'm curious, because you said you opened up for David Cross, the comedian.
Yeah.
What is he like? Because I'm a huge fan. I'm actually rewatching the whole Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul thing. So I think I'm like Bob Odenkirk. I remember him from Mr. Show with Bob and David, all these years ago. So I think it's really cool when comedians get bands to open up for them. It's become more, I don't know, it's become more like accepted. You see like Jim Brewer do that. You see a lot of other types of comedians pair up with bands. So I guess how is he in person? Is he funny, or is he like does he shut it off? Does he shut it off when he comes off stage? What is he like?
Man, I used to see him a lot, but this is quite some time ago now. This is in the early 2000s. And I haven't seen him in a good 15 years, but he was kind of normal and nice, which is refreshing. I mean, he's a funny guy, but he's a really nice guy. And he was very supportive of my band, Double Dong and Wild Lick. So that was cool. And that show he did, yeah, I guess I think he had really kind of made a name for himself with Mr. Show and put together this night. And it was a bunch of comedians. And I think that there was another band that played as well. But yeah, it was really cool. And it was funny too, because I think I'd heard of shows in the 70s where rock bands would have comedians open for them. and it was pretty funny to be a band opening for a comedian, but it totally worked. It was super fun.
I would like to see more of that, because you go back into the days of like the Catskills. I'm not old enough to actually know this, but I know that you would have comedians open up for bands. It would be vice versa. But I just think it's cool, because I look at David Cross as like a rock and roll comedian. And if you have a band like yours that is very talented, but also has the comedy aspect of it, it just really meshes well together. And that's why you and Steel Panther are going to mesh well together on tour. Tell me about the new album where you pay homage to the better sex. I mean, it's oh, my wife isn't here anymore. Oh, you have the cover art, right? I Am Woman.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
A devil woman in bikini with 6 arms. Is that the vinyl? Is that what we can
This is the
pre-order again?
vinyl. Yeah.
Awesome. So what, you got Aretha Franklin cover on there? You have a few singles out now. Tell me, videos, I should say, as well. Tell me what's going on with I Am Woman that comes out March 3rd, so soon.
Yeah. Yeah. We're real proud of this album. We spent a long time. We spent a year and a half making this album.
Wow.
And so it's all the source material is all songs made famous by female artists. And we've done that before, not a whole album like that, but we've done songs like that before. And, you know, a whole idea with tragedy is flipping the script on things, right? You know, doing disco and soft rock is heavy metal, right? And then here we are, a bunch of guys doing songs by women. And, you know, that just kind of, it's inspiring for us creatively, and I think it's inspiring for audiences. Like, it kind of opens up parts of your mind and parts of your heart and soul that that, you know, you don't get reached. So yeah, it's what do we have? The Freak, I Will Survive, She Bop, Memory from Cats, Lay All Your Love on Me by ABBA. You know, so it's like the album cover kind of represents like all these different themes in the album. And you know, the title track, I Am Woman, is of course an empowerment song, but you know, it's not like the whole album is an empowerment album. It's about all these different aspects of a woman's life, you know, partying and romance. And I don't know what that disgusting baby Lance is doing on the cover. I'm not sure what that represents, but it's there. And she's a warrior too, because she's totally metal.
That's true. And Lance, if you go on your website, let's make tragedy happen .com, he's listed as Towel Boy, complete idiot. Can we expand on that?
Oh God. Oh, yeah. I mean, we need someone. We get moist, right, on stage. So we needed someone to tell us off between songs. And then this guy just like, he inserts himself into the show and he thinks he's part of the band and stuff, but whatever. Fucking guy.
I love it. Well, I understand then. Complete idiot next to him. And I love this. Andy Givius Waning, and then Gibeon Ass Freely, also members of the band who are not here. And the Infernal Demigib. I really appreciate it. Did I pronounce all those right, by the way? I probably
Yeah,
not.
basically.
Basically, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a professional, I swear. So let me ask Disco, because obviously Appetite for Distortion. What is your history with in the GNR cover band? Were you the Axl of that band?
Yeah, so they were called Mr. Brownstone, and they put themselves out as the drunkest GNR band. And the singer was also in a band called Clap Your Hands Say Yeah. So when he was touring with them, they would call me to fill in. And I would drink with them. And sometime I remember one time they had me sit in as the Shannon Hoon, and I got really drunk because they had Jack Daniels backstage, and I had the greatest time. And then at the end of the night, one of the Izzy said, "Hey, isn't it great that we did this whole show sober?" And I was the only drunk one, and I felt really out of place. But um, it's a lot of fun, and those songs are really hard to sing, of course, because it's Axl Rose. But they're a fun band. They're a really fun band. And I met Axl Rose at a party once, and my ex-girlfriend was an aerialist, and she was I did a show at Ars Nova Theater, and she texted me and said, "Hey, I'm at this place called Show. It's gone now, but it was an after party for uh Victoria's Secret something." And so went to meet her there, and it was the after party, the backstage party. And Axl Rose was there. And I said, "Hey, I was I couldn't talk to my girlfriend at the time. I was totally preoccupied because I couldn't stop staring at Axl sitting alone." And then she goes, "Well, why don't you go talk to him?" So I walked over and I said, "Hey, I saw you in '93 at Texas uh, uh, at the Cotton Bowl
Mm.
in Texas in '93. No, yeah, with Metallica, and that was amazing. And you're I and I and he said thank you, and that was it. I was so nervous, I walked away, and then there was somebody walking around with champagne that was free. So I was pounding champagne, and the bubbles and the alcohol that gets you drunk pretty quick. So I had a little more fortitude, and so I walked back over. And when you're drunk and you have that voice in the back of your head that's sober telling you which way to go, and the drunk part of you ignores it. Well, the back part of my head was saying, "Don't ask about Chinese democracy. Ask about Chinese democracy." And my mouth just went, "Hey, so when's Chinese democracy coming out?" I heard the sober part of my head screaming like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And he was really nice. He was like, "Well, they're gonna put out a greatest hits to see how it does. And then after that, they'll assess and see if they want to put out Chinese democracy." And then
Wow.
me and sober me just went, "That was so practical." And then I was a little nervous, and I said, "Hey, I sing in a band called Mr. Brownstone sometimes. Man, it's so hard to sing your songs." And then we just started hanging out, and he started talking about uh how Stephanie Seymour fucked up, and he talked about the first time he came to New York, and the Penn brothers got a limo and showed him around New York City. And he had an assistant with him who was really kind. And we were just hanging out, and there was a magician that was hired to do close-up magic, walk around close-up magic. And he interrupted us, and I was like, "Oh, here it comes. I'm gonna see the Axl Rose where he blows his lid." And the guy was like, "Hey, do you guys want to see a magic trick?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." He was so nice.
Hmm.
Just so nice. And he goes, "Okay, what's your name?" And I said, "John." And he goes, "Okay, John, hold out your hand." He goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Axel." And he goes, "Okay, Ax, hold out your hand." And he was so nice. So nice. And then I got a photo with him, and that was it.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's a nice little Axl Rose story. I didn't know about that. And what I like is because usually when I ask about Axl, whether it's somebody who like you who just meets him once, a fan, or somebody who's worked with him, I don't hear bad things about the guy. I really don't. It's not just me being an Uber fan. I'm not naive. Everyone has their faults, but I mean, I always hear that about people who meet Axl. Like, he was just so nice, but I was waiting to see this other person that the media portrays. So that is cool, especially with the the magician. Oh my God, so many things can go wrong. And asking about Chinese democracy, so many things can go wrong, and nothing did. So that's a cool story. Thank you for sharing that. And I would be remiss because also on this whole episode we had Phil Campbell on earlier. Mo, you said you have a Phil story.
Oh, so I've seen Motorhead twice in my life. Once when I was a little kid, maybe 14 or something like that. And then another time we played a festival. We're on the same stage as them in the UK. Both were the loudest concerts I've ever been to. The first one was in a gymnastics hall in Madison, Wisconsin. And I got in the front row. I stood there right in front of Phil Campbell. And it was so weird to me because like Lemmy and the other guys in the band, they looked so rough. And Phil was all shampooed and had this shiny new Les Paul, and he was playing and he kept on winking at me while he was playing. It was like, that's really weird, but okay. I love this experience. It was so insane. So then, decades later, playing this festival, and we get to be on the stage side of the barricade because we're artists, and go there and stand over by Phil again. And I swear to God, same thing, looking great, shampooed, shiny Les Paul, and he's winking at me again. That's my Phil Campbell story.
You never asked why he was winking? Did he think
I never got to talk to him.
Oh.
I think he may just kind of wink, and I gotta tell you, I stole that move. I love doing some licks and doing some winks.
Doing some winks.
It's a hot look.
That's true. The wink is very underrated. Hey, I appreciate that. I like those random stories that mean something to like you as a fan, right? But it seems so nonsensical. Like, why would Phil remember that? Like little things like that happen all the time. Like when I met Jim Brewer, and this sounds weird, and Jim Brewer, speaking, as I mentioned him earlier, in the Sirius XM bathroom stall, but not like a George Michael kind of story. He was just like, after work, I'm at one urinal, he's at the other, and I'm like, I'm peeing next to Jim Brewer. This is the highlight of my career. And he was and his stupid Jim Brewer laugh, whatever. So that makes those are stories that make me laugh. So I appreciate that. Not as one-on-one as Disco with Axl, but nevertheless entertaining regardless. So you guys excited for the tour? I know you guys you're playing our neck of the woods, right? Soon, Irving Plaza with Steel Panther.
15th, right?
Yeah, I want to say March 16th at Irving Plaza, but yeah, we're doing 6 weeks across the US with Steel Panther and Crowbot. Super excited for that. And then we're home for a few days, and then we go overseas, tour the UK and Spain and France, Portugal.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a relatively quiet 3 years. And we were touring very consistently, especially overseas, before the pandemic. And then since then it's been, we've done some regional touring and played in Canada and stuff like that. But now we're out there like first half of the year we're going to be on the road almost the entire time.
That's awesome. And because even though we're all New York based with this podcast, I am global. I'm so lucky that I have listeners all over, like you mentioned, Portugal and France. I mean, there's GNR fans everywhere. For whatever reason, they find this podcast and they become fans of this podcast. So that's why it's exciting that you're not just a local NYC band, that you are global, that people that listen to this podcast can see you wherever they are in the world. I mean, that must just blow your mind to kind of, put a bookend on our conversation here, that what started as you thought would maybe be a joke. Now you're touring the world and, going viral and, albums with, they're selling well. I mean, did you ever expect this to happen from this Bee Gees metal band?
At the beginning when it was just a concept, and it was a concept on paper, before we got our first gig. No, we thought we'd play a couple shows and it might be super fun. But I gotta say, like, as soon as we started, made a couple of demos and played even our first show, is like, wow, this is really connecting in a creative way and connecting with audiences. And it actually took off pretty fast. And yeah, we put out our first album, I think, just within a few months after the band started. And we're playing to big audiences, like, doing support shows, and mostly in New York City at the time. And then within a year, we were touring in the UK for the first time. So it accelerated really fast. But yeah, it went from like simply dumb concept to, international stardom.
Well, it's really cool. Like what you guys do is really cool and unique and special, and that's why you've been successful. And I'm looking forward to hearing, because with the singles where you have Venus out right now, there might be another track if there's a video for it, but I'm looking forward to hearing the whole album, because it's just a lot of fun. I mean, these are songs that I like. Maybe they're guilty pleasures to some, but the fact that you metal them up almost gives you like a pass. Oh, I can enjoy this song, but I enjoy it regardless. I like the original and what you guys do with it. So just keep doing what you're doing.
You can come into it loving the original or hating the original, but
Right.
we're going to reinvent it and give you a whole fresh take on it.
Oh, I love it. So if people want to check out, see where Tragedy is in your neck of the woods, your neck of the globe, just go to the website, right? letsmaketragedyhappen.com, and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You have all of those?
We have all those things.
TikTok or no?
Smash that like button.
Oh.
Smash it.
Do you guys have a TikTok yet or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're hardly ever on there, but we're there.
Okay.
Smash that like button.
Yeah, me too. Smash it good. Well, thank you, Mo Royce and Disco Mountain Man from Tragedy. Thank you so much for your time today. And I'm sure I'll see you on the road, because you guys have obviously had a name in New York City for quite a long time. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys live and hearing more of your music. So until next time.
Great talking with you.
Yeah,
You got it. Those were cool guys. Really, really fun to talk to them, and an unexpected Axl story. Sometimes I will just set them up being like, hey, so didn't so-and-so happen? And just let them tell the story. Had no idea. Just knew he was in a GNR cover band, and just a great story that came out of nowhere. That's kind of the point of this podcast, these Guns N' Roses stories that come out of nowhere. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. What is to come? Well, of course, the conversation always continues in between the broadcasts, and that's how you find out about guests. That's how you can submit questions or possibly be a co-host. I will let you know, coming back on the podcast is Lauren Monroe and her husband, Rick Allen of Def Leppard. So they will be coming back on. They're doing a really cool event, fundraising event with Matt Sorum. We'll see if we get Matt Sorum back on the podcast. He's supposed to, but we'll see. Just kind of got to sit and wait. And it just reminded me, doing that interview with Phil Campbell is exactly how I did my first Matt Sorum interview. For different reasons. With Matt, I was forced to work from home at the beginning of COVID and had no setup like I do now. So all I could do, and I was not going to let a Matt Sorum interview opportunity pass me by, whatever I was going to do, no matter what the quality. So I held up my phone to my microphone, which is exactly what I did now all these years later. But this was just kind of out of desperation and just knowing I had a short window to get it. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, well, we'll figure it out. That happens with some guests. I'm here all day, no worries. Hey, I'm going to be late, so-and-so. Those things happen, but this was a specific window that I needed to get it done. And I got it done. So hopefully you enjoyed that despite the technical difficulties. Also, a heads up, it's just funny to talk about, but it's right around the bend. I'm going to have a sweet child of mine, April 27th, or that's the due date. And believe me, many of my friends have already said, I hope he's a week early, 420. Yeah, maybe. But regardless, so obviously around that time, I'm not going to be doing episodes. Unless it's like, hey, Axl Rose wants to be interviewed by you, which is not going to happen. I will hold a crying baby on my chest, a pooping crying baby, and we'll do whatever it takes to get Axl or Slash or Duff or certain people like that. But otherwise, I might have to schedule interviews when I can, when my wife is home and she could watch the baby. Or, if he's quiet, if he's a quiet baby, I'm going to have him on my lap, baby Brownstone, doing interviews. That's going to be part of my shtick. So if you like the shtick I've been doing so far, minus my future baby co-host, just continue to follow and support on social media. I'm going to be still active on there when I take that little bit of a hiatus to be a dad for the first time. And you could always make a donation as well to help me pay for diapers. I do have a registry up. I'm going to post that again soon on my social media where you can buy, we've had friends and family buy us all the, certain baby stuff. But me, I'm like, just diaper fund. Because I'm going to be on diaper duty, pun intended. Since I work from home, I'm going to be with the baby most of the time. So I'm going to be elbow in it, in the poop. All your parents are probably laughing at me knowing what I'm going to experience. So if you want to help me pay for diapers, you could do that. I've had listeners just make donations to the podcast out of the kindness of their heart on PayPal or Patreon or YouTube. You could do that super like or super thanks. You could do it that way. Just reach out. If there's you have baby advice, the afdshow@gmail.com. But I'll be taking a break. That'll be coming up. But again, still interviews to get to before April 27th. Okay? So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it, I don't know if soon is the word.